Welcome to Warhammer 40k 8th edition Battle Report 31, 2,000 points, Chaos Demons of Tzeentch versus Necrons. This will be the big rulebook, Maelstrom of War mission, Cleanse and Capture, and we will be rolling for a random map deployment today. Let's begin by taking a quick look around the board and at where the objective markers have been placed. Beginning in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, objective marker 1 has been placed right here next to this crater. Moving over to this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, we have objective marker 6 right here next to this ruin. In this third 2 foot by 2 foot section, we have objective marker 5 right here next to this ruin. Moving over to the other side of the board, we have objective marker 3 next to this ruin in this 2 foot by 2 foot section. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, we have objective marker 2 right here next to this ruin. And finally, in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, we have objective marker 4 right here next to this crater. For this battle report, the Necrons will have 8 command points, and the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will have 8 plus D3, thanks to Kairos Fateweaver being their warlord. And so we will roll for their D3 right now. Rolling a 2, which of course is just plus 1 extra command point for 9 command points total. And now we will roll for the random map deployment, and here's the roll. Getting a 3, which is the deployment map Search and Destroy. So since this is the deployment map Search and Destroy, we have a circle in the middle of the board where the edge is 9 inches out from the center of the battlefield, and so here is the circle right here. It is not a perfect circle, as some of the terrain is in the way. And we also have a line going down the middle this way for the quadrants, and of course, because they are 2 foot by 2 foot sections, there is already a natural line going this direction because of the gap in between the boards. So we will first have to roll to see which 2 quadrants will be picked out of the 4. So on a 1, 2, or 3, it will be this quadrant over here and this quadrant down here. And if it's a 4, 5, or 6, it will be this quadrant up here and this quadrant down here. And so here's the roll. Getting a 2, and so one army will be deploying in this quadrant right here, and the other army will be deploying down in this quadrant. So on a roll of a 1, 2, or 3, Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will deploy up here in the Imperial Ruins, and the Necrons will deploy down here, and on a 4, 5, or 6, it'll be the opposite, so Chaos Demons of Tzeentch down here, and the Necrons up in the Imperial Ruins. And so here's the roll. Getting a 5, and so Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will be deploying in the lower quadrant, and the Necrons will be deploying in the further quadrant with the Imperial Ruins. Now on a roll of a 1, 2, or 3, Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will begin deploying first, and on a 4, 5, or 6, the Necrons will begin deploying first. And here's the roll. Getting a 3, so the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will begin deploying first. We will be back after the deployment. So the deployment is now finished. Chaos Demons of Tzeentch began to deploy first, and they also finished deploying first, which means that they will go first unless the Necrons are able to successfully seize the initiative. Let's take a quick look around the board at where each army placed all of their units. Beginning with the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch, since they finished their deployment first, we have the first squad of Screamers, Lord of Change with Rod of Sorcery, who also has the Hellforged artifact, the Everstaff, Lord of Change with Baleful Sword and the Impossible Robe, Squad of Pink Horrors, Demon Prince of Tzeentch with Wings, the Warlord Kairos Fateweaver, second Demon Prince of Tzeentch with Wings, second squad of Screamers, Squad of Pink Horrors with Demonic Icon and Instrument, and finally, third squad of Pink Horrors. Moving over to the Necron deployment, we have the first Ghost Ark with the squad of warriors embarked inside, squad of 10 immortals, Cryptek, the squad of 6 Canoptic Wraiths, first Annihilation Barge, second Annihilation Barge, second Ghost Ark with squad of warriors inside, a third squad of warriors that is sitting out in the open in a crater, the first Night Scythe, the second Night Scythe, the Overlord, who is the Necron Warlord, and he has been placed onto a tomb world, and he will come in from one of the Night Scythes later in the battle. So now we will roll to see if the Necrons are able to seize the initiative, and they are looking for 6, and they fail by rolling a 5. So let's go into Chaos Demons of Tzeentch, turn 1. Going into Chaos Demons of Tzeentch turn 1, a reminder that the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch have 9 command points available, and the Necrons have 8 command points available. So the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will begin by drawing 3 new tactical objective cards, and they draw the Glory of Khorne. Score 1 victory point if an enemy character was destroyed during this turn. If an enemy character was destroyed by one of your Khorne demon units during this turn, score D3 victory points instead. Domination, score D3 plus 3 victory points if you control every objective marker on the battlefield at the end of your turn. And Defend Objective 1, score 2 victory points if you control objective marker 1 at the end of 2 consecutive turns. And objective marker 1 is this one right here, next to this crater, currently not being held by anyone. So going into the movement phase, for Chaos Demons of Tzeentch turn 1, we will begin with this squad of pink horrors sitting on objective marker 5, and they will remain still. This squad of pink horrors is going to move up the board up to 6 inches, and they will also declare an advance. And here's their advance roll. And they do get to add 1 because the instrument within the squad, so they will have 5 inches of advance total for up to 11 inches of total movement. And they will finish their movement like so, with the iridescent horror having moved through the doorway of the ruin. Kairos Fateweaver is now going to move up to 12 inches up the board, and he will jump over the ruin right to there. This squad of Screamers are now going to move up the board up to 16 inches, and they will finish their movement like so. Next, this Demon Prince of Tzeentch is going to move up to 12 inches up the board, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling 2 additional inches for up to 14 inches of total movement. And he will finish his movement right there. Next, the Lord of Change with Baleful Sword and the Impossible Robe is going to move up the board up to 12 inches. And he will finish his movement right here. Next, this Demon Prince of Tzeentch will move up to 12 inches up the board and will not declare an advance. And he will finish his movement right there. Next, this Lord of Change will move up to 12 inches up the board, and he will also declare an advance. And here's his advance roll, rolling 6 additional inches for up to 18 inches of total movement. And he will finish his movement right here, not quite yet within 3 inches of the center of objective marker 1. This squad of Screamers is now going to move up the board up to 16 inches, and they will finish their movement like so. Finally, this squad of pink horrors will remain still. Going into the psychic phase for Chaos Demons of Tzeentch turn 1, Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will begin by using the stratagem Locus of Conjuration for 2 command points, which will bring them from 9 down to 7. Use this stratagem at the start of your psychic phase, select a Tzeentch demon character from your army. Until the end of the phase, you can re-roll any failed psychic test made for friendly Tzeentch demon units within 6 inches of that model. And the target of the stratagem will be the Warlord Kairos Fateweaver, which means that both of the Demon Princes of Tzeentch will be able to take advantage of this stratagem. And so we will begin with this Demon Prince of Tzeentch over here, the one who advanced, attempting to manifest Smite onto this Ghost Ark. And Smite has a warp charge value of 5, and it passes with an 8. And the Necrons have no Deny the Witch capabilities. So it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 3 mortal wounds. So this Ghost Ark will fall from 14 starting wounds down to 11. Next, the other Demon Prince of Tzeentch is going to attempt to manifest Smite onto the Canoptic Wraiths because they are the closest enemy unit to the Demon Prince of Tzeentch within 18 inches and also visible. So Smite now has a warp charge value of 6, and it passes with a 9. And it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. And so 1 Canoptic Wraith, this one right here, will fall from 3 starting wounds down to 1. The Lord of Change with Baleful Sword is now going to attempt to manifest Boon of Change onto himself and Smite onto the Ghost Ark because the Ghost Ark is the closest enemy unit within 18 inches and also visible. Starting with Boon of Change, which has a warp charge value of 7. And it fails with a double 1. So the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch are going to use 1 command point going from 7 down to 6 for a command reroll in order to reroll one of the 1s. And here's the reroll. And now it passes. We also get to add 2 thanks to the Psychic Test bonus from the Lord of Change, and so it passes with a 9. So Boon of Change will go off, and no perils. So now here's the D3 on the chart, getting a 6, which is obviously a 3, which is Iron Skin plus 1 toughness. So the Lord of Change with Baleful Sword until the start of the next Chaos Demons of Tzeentch Psychic phase will be toughness 8 instead of toughness 7. And now for Smite, which now has a warp charge value of 7, and it passes with a 7 thanks to the Psychic Test bonus. So it will go off, and it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 1 mortal wound. So this Ghost Ark will fall from 14 starting wounds down to 13. Next, Kairos Fateweaver will attempt to manifest Gaze of Fate, and then he will also attempt to manifest Infernal Gateway and Smite onto this Ghost Ark because it is the closest visible enemy unit. And obviously, Infernal Gateway will affect all units within 3 inches, which will only be the squad of Immortals and the Cryptek if it goes off. So starting with Gaze of Fate, which has a warp charge value of 6, and it passes with a 7 thanks to the Psychic Test bonus. So now Tzeentch will be able to reroll 1 dice later in this turn. Now for Smite, which has a warp charge value of 8. And it passes with an 11. So D6 mortal wounds, and it will do 4 mortal wounds. So the Ghost Ark will fall from 11 wounds down to 7. Now for Infernal Gateway, which also has a warp charge value of 8. And that will pass with an 11 as well. And thanks to the 6 and the Psychic Test bonus, it is already guaranteed to pass. And so Chaos Demons of Tzeentch are going to use their Gaze of Fate reroll in order to reroll the 3, because if they turn that 3 into a 4 or higher, the Psychic Test as a whole will become a 12 up, which means that it will do D6 wounds instead of D3. And here's the reroll. And so now it only passes with a 10. Either way, it was going to pass. So it will just do D3 mortal wounds to the Ghost Ark, and then D3 wounds to the Immortals, and D3 mortal wounds to the Cryptek. Starting with the Ghost Ark, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. So the Ghost Ark will fall from 7 wounds down to 5. The Immortals will suffer D3, and they will just suffer 1 mortal wound. So 1 Immortal will be killed off. And now D3 mortal wounds to the Cryptek, and it will do just 1 mortal wound. So the Cryptek will fall from 4 starting wounds down to 3. So now this Lord of Change will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Ghost Ark with 13 wounds left, and he will attempt to manifest Bolt of Change onto the Canoptic Raids. Starting with Smite, which now has a warp charge value of 9, and it passes with a 13, thanks to a Psychic Test bonus and the Everstaff, which means it will do D6 mortal wounds, and it will do 6 mortal wounds. So this Ghost Ark will fall from 13 wounds down to 7. And now for Bolt of Change onto the Canoptic Rays, has a warp charge value of 8, and it passes with a 12. So D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. So the Cryptek that is down to 1 wound will be killed off, and then the Cryptek behind him will be reduced from 3 wounds down to 2. Going into the shooting phase, there is nothing to fire. So going into the assault phase, we have multiple charges to declare. First will be this squad of Screamers declaring a charge into the Ghost Ark. Second will be Kairos Fateweaver declaring a multi-charge into the Ghost Ark and the Immortals. Third will be the Demon Prince of Tzeentch declaring a charge into the Canoptic Raids. Fourth will be the Lord of Change with Baleful Sword declaring a multi-charge into the Canoptic Raids and the Ghost Ark with 7 wounds left. And the 5th charge will be the Screamers over here declaring a charge into the Ghost Ark with 7 wounds left. And we will begin over on this side with the Screamers. So beginning with the Overwatch from the Ghost Ark, and it's 2 Gauze Flare arrays, 20 shots hitting on 6s, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. 1 4-up invulnerable save, which passes. And here's their charge range, getting 6 inches. And they are about 6 3/4 inches away, which means they need a 6-inch charge, but they will be charging through a crater, which means they need to roll an 8 or higher to make it in, so that charge will fail. However, Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will use 1 command point going from 6 down to 5, now that it's the assault phase, for a command reroll to reroll the 2. And here's the reroll, and they get the 8. So those Screamers will make it in. And they will finish their charge like so. Next, we will do the Lord of Change with Baleful Sword, and he is not charging through a crater, and because the Ghost Ark is already locked, there is no Overwatch. And here's the charge range, getting 10 inches. And the Lord of Change with Baleful Sword is now locked in base to base with both the Ghost Ark and the Canoptic Rays, or at least with the Ghost Ark base to hull. Next will be this Demon Prince purely into the Canoptic Rays. And here's the charge range, getting 9 inches. And the Demon Prince is now locked in combat with the Canoptic Raids. Next, we will do this squad of Screamers into the Ghost Ark. First, resolving the Overwatch from the Ghost Ark, 20 shots, hitting on 6s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, getting 2 wounds. 2 4-up invulnerable saves, passing both. And here's the charge range, getting 6 inches, and the Screamers have now made it into combat as they were less than 6 inches away. Finally, we will resolve the charge from Kairos Fateweaver into both the Ghost Ark and the Immortals. The Ghost Ark will be unable to overwatch as it's already locked, but the Immortals will be able to overwatch. However, one of the Immortals in the far back, this one way over here, is not within 12 inches, so he will not be able to fire rapid fire. And remember that there was an Immortal killed off earlier in this turn, so there will be 8 Immortals in rapid fire range and 1 at full range, which means 17 shots total, hitting on 6s, getting 2 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s, failing to wound. And now the charge range from Kairos, getting 9 inches. And so Kairos Fateweaver is now locked in combat with both. Going into the fight phase for Chaos Daemons of Tzeentch, turn 1, Chaos Daemons of Tzeentch will be using the stratagem Warp Search for 2 command points, bring them from 5 down to 3. Use this stratagem at the start of any phase, select a unit of demons. Until the end of the phase, you cannot reroll saving throws for this unit, but its invulnerable save is improved by 1 to a maximum of 3 up. And this will be used on the Demon Prince of Tzeentch in combat with the Canoptic Wraiths. And the Demon Prince of Tzeentch will go first. 7 attacks with his 2 sets of Malefic Talons onto the Canoptic Wraiths, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, getting 6 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Still failing to hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 4 wounds, 1 fail, and 1 cocked dice. Rerolling the cocked dice, getting a 5th wound. 5, 3 up invulnerable saves, passing 4 and failing 1. But because they are 2 damage apiece, and there is 1 Canoptic Wraith who is down to only 2 wounds, the Necrons are going to use 1 command point, going from 8 down to 7, for a command reroll to reroll the 2. And here's the reroll. And it passes. So now the Necrons are going to use the stratagem Counteroffensive for 2 command points, bring them from 7 down to 5. This stratagem is used right after an enemy unit that charge is fought. Select one of your own eligible units and fight with the next, and this will be used on the Canoptic Wraiths. So first, the Canoptic Wraiths will pile in, and now all 5 of the Canoptic Wraiths are either within an inch of an enemy unit or within an inch of a friendly model who's within an inch of an enemy unit. So they all will be able to fight. So one who is in base-to-base with the Lord of Change will have to place his attacks onto the Lord of Change, while the other 4 will all place their attacks onto the Demon Prince. So first, the 1 model onto the Lord of Change, 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 5s, failing to wound, so no damage is taken from the Lord of Change. So now 12 attacks from the remaining 4 onto the Demon Prince of Tzeentch, hitting on 3s, getting 11 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 4s, getting 6 wounds. 6, 3 up invulnerable saves, passing 4 and failing 2. And they are 2 damage apiece, so the Demon Prince of Tzeentch will fall from 8 starting wounds down to 4. Going back over to units that charged this turn, we will next have the Screamers pile in and then fight against the Ghost Ark. And they will pile in like so. Only 4 of the 6 models will be able to attack. 3 attacks apiece for 12 attacks total, hitting on 4s, getting 8 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 4s, getting 5 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so the Ghost Ark will not be able to take an armor save. And they are 2 damage apiece, which means that the Quantum Shielding could potentially save some of these. So in order to save, looking for 1s, and the Quantum Shielding fails all 5. So that is 10 damage that goes through. And the Ghost Ark only has 7 wounds left, so the Ghost Ark will be killed off. Does it explode on a 6? And it does not. So the squad of warriors inside is now emergency disembarked out onto the battlefield and partially into the crater. And they are very close over here to the other squad, so we will have to try to keep them separate. But now that they've emergency disembarked, now we will roll a dice for each of the models in that squad, and every roll of 1 will simply remove a model. So 10 dice. Rolling 2 1s, so 2 models will be slain, and now the Ghost Ark will also be removed. And so this, of course, will be first blood for the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch. And now the Screamers will consolidate up to 3 inches, and they will consolidate into combat with the newly disembarked squad of warriors. And they will finish their consolidation like so. Next, this squad of Screamers will pile in up to 3 inches and then fight against this Ghost Ark. So just like with the other one, only 4 models will be able to fight instead of all 6. And they are within 6 inches of a Demon Prince, so 12 attacks total, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 10 hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 4s, getting 5 wounds. Exact same situation again, minus 3 AP, so no armor save. And they are 2 damage apiece, so the quantum shielding can ignore them on 1s. And it will ignore 1 of the strikes, but failing to ignore 4 of them, and so that's 8 damage that goes through, and this Ghost Ark only has 5 wounds left, so it is killed off. Does it explode on a 6? And it does not. So the 10 models inside will emergency disembark like so, and now we will roll to see how many are killed off from the emergency disembarkation. 10 dice looking for 1s. Rolling 2 just like the other one. So 2 warriors will be killed off, and then the Ghost Ark will be removed. And now, just like with the other side, the Screamers will consolidate into combat with those warriors. And they will consolidate like so, into combat. Now we will do Kairos Fateweaver purely into the Immortals. And I just realized now, looking at the stat sheet for Kairos Fateweaver, that we forgot the Locus from Tzeentch this fight phase, which is the Locus of Trickery. So we roll 2 dice, take away the highest, and luckily it doesn't matter. Hit rolls of 1 do not count against Tzeentch demon characters, and they already didn't, because hit rolls of 1 always fail. So luckily it didn't matter this turn, but that could have potentially mattered when the Canoptic Wraiths hit the Demon Prince. So 5 attacks from Kairos Fateweaver with the Staff of Tomorrow onto the Immortals, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, getting 4 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Getting a 5th hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 2s. That's a very bad roll. Getting 3 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 3 6-up armor saves, failing all 3. So 3 Immortals from the back will be killed off. And now the Lord of Change with Baleful Sword will get to strike against the Canoptic Wraiths. And the Lord of Change with Baleful Sword will be using his Staff of Tzeentch because it is going to be better in this situation in every way. So 5 attacks base with the Staff of Tzeentch, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, getting 4 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll. Getting a 5th hit. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s. Getting 3 wounds. 3 3-up and vulnerable saves. Failing 2. And they are 3 damage apiece. So the 1 wounded Canoptic Wraith will lose its final 2 wounds and be killed off. And then 1 fully healthy Canoptic Wraith will also be fully killed off, since they are only 3 wounds base. So now this squad of warriors right here is going to pile in up to 3 inches. And now all 8 will be able to fight against the Screamers. 1 attack piece for 8 attacks total, hitting on 3s. That was a terrible hit roll. Getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound. 1 4-up and vulnerable save, which fails. So the Screamer on the end here will fall from 2 starting wounds down to 1. Next, the Immortals will pile in and fight against Kairos Fateweaver. So the Immortals have now piled in, only 4 of them will be able to attack. 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 7 means wounding on 5s and failing to wound. Finally, this squad of Necron warriors will pile in and fight against the Screamers. And now they will all be able to fight. 8 attacks, hitting on 3s, getting 8 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 4s, getting 3 wounds. 3 4-up and vulnerable saves, passing 2 and failing 1. So 1 Screamer will fall from 2 wounds down to 1. Going into the morale phase, this squad of Necron warriors lost 2 models this turn. However, they have leadership of 10, so it's impossible for them to fail. This squad of warriors also lost 2 models this turn. However, same situation, leadership of 10, so it's impossible for them to fail. This squad of Immortals lost 4 models this turn, but since they have leadership of 10, it's impossible for them to fail. And finally, the Canoptic Rays lost 3 models this turn, but they have leadership of 10, so it's impossible for them to fail. Taking a look at the tactical objective cards, Chaos Demons of Tzeentch failed to complete the Glory of Khorne, they failed to complete Domination, and they also have failed to complete and or even begin Defend Objective 1. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Tzeentch turn 1, they will throw Domination away. And so at the end of Chaos Demons of Tzeentch turn 1, we currently have a score of 1 victory point for the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch thanks to First Blood, and 0 victory points for the Necrons. Going into Necrons turn 1, a reminder that the Necrons have 5 command points available, and the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch have 3 command points available. At the beginning of their turn, the Necrons drew 3 new tactical objective cards, and they drew Dust and Ashes. When this tactical objective is generated, nominate a Necron's character from your army, score 1 victory point at the end of the game, if this character is alive and on the battlefield. Supremacy, score D3 victory points if you control any 3 objective markers at the end of your turn. And Mission Critical Objective. When this tactical objective is generated, roll a d6, score 1 victory point if you control the corresponding objective marker. If the corresponding objective marker was controlled by your opponent at the start of your turn, and you control it at the end of your turn, score d3 victory points instead. So this is the objective marker 6, and the character that will be chosen for Dust and Ashes will be the Cryptek, who is on the battlefield. And there is a reason for that, which we will get into in just a moment. And objective marker 6 is this one right here, currently being controlled by a squad of pink horrors. And at this point, the Necrons are going to concede the game, which means, of course, that the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch will achieve Line Breaker, which will give them a final score of 2 victory points. And because the Cryptek is alive and on the battlefield, the Necrons will end up with a final score of 1 victory point. So it will be 2-1 in Tzeentch's favor, with a major victory for the Chaos Demons of Tzeentch thanks to a Necron concession. And so now that it's been announced that the Necrons have conceded the game at the beginning of Necrons turn 1, and so we have a Chaos Demons of Tzeentch major victory with a final score of 2 victory points to 1 in Tzeentch's favor. I can go over 1 or 2 of my final thoughts on this game. First and foremost of which is that the Necrons got slaughtered. They got absolutely destroyed right out of the gate, and it makes me very concerned for the rest of this series. But this goes to show what happens when a close combat army is given a deployment map where they can set up only 18 inches away from their opponent. Tzeentch was able to make 5 separate charges in turn 1. And between those 5 charges and all of the extremely lucky psychic powers that went off, including a smite which did 6 mortal wounds, they killed off both Ghost Arcs turn 1. Absolutely ridiculous. And that is exactly why we are conceding the game at this point. Because half the Necron army is locked in combat, and while the Canoptic Rays are a close combat unit, the 2 squads of warriors and the squad of immortals are not. And they will get slaughtered if they stay in combat, but if they fall back, they then can't do anything for the rest of their turn. And the problem is, Tzeentch lost almost nothing in all of that. One of the Demon Princes fell from 8 wounds down to 4, and 2 separate Screamers fell from 2 wounds down to 1. But that was it. Tzeentch has lost no models. All 3 of their Lords of Change, including Kairos Fateweaver, who is technically a Lord of Change, are all at perfectly full health, and the Necrons just don't have anything at this point that can counter them. Because their squad of Canoptic Rays has been cut in half, and obviously they can use a stratagem to potentially give them reanimation protocols, but that's not going to guarantee that models are brought back, and even if they are, they might just get killed off again. And because of the 5 successful charges, the Necrons are just going to be spread out too much to be able to counter effectively. The Necrons could have the Immortals fall back and then have both Annihilation Barges and both Night Size fire everything that they have into Kairos Fateweaver. But issue number 1 is I'm pretty sure it would take all 4 units, so not a single one of those would be able to fire at something else, because I'm pretty sure it would take all 4 to be able to finish off Kairos, which means, of course, then that next turn, Tzeentch can just press in even further with their psychic powers, finish killing off those Canoptic Rays and the Warriors and the Immortals and everything else, and then begin to engage the Annihilation Barges and the Night Size. And issue number 2 is that since I am playing this on my own, it's kind of hard to hide strategy from myself myself. And so if I know, obviously, that the Necrons are going to target a particular unit, I should then do the smart thing and use the stratagem Warp Surge on said unit to give it a better invulnerable save, which would make it even more difficult for the Necrons to kill off Kairos Fateweaver. It's very difficult to hide things from yourself. So I do apologize for such a short battle report. I think this is the first time I've ever had a battle end before the end of game turn 1, but there's no real point in playing the rest of this one out because of just how well Tzeentch started off. But to their credit, that's what you want to do as an army, is hit so hard that you force your opponent to give up right away. But the Necrons have no chance of securing objective marker 6 for a critical objective marker, tactical objective card. They are currently only holding 2 objective markers, and there's no way for them to hold a third at this point, so they're not going to achieve supremacy. And obviously, Dust and Ashes only activates at the end of the game. And if we were to actually play this one out, I'm pretty sure both characters on the Necron side, the Cryptek and the Overlord, would be killed off. So it would be very difficult to achieve that one as well. And so the Necrons are looking at no tactical objective card victory points this turn, unless, of course, they concede the game, and that's why they picked the Cryptek, because he's out on the field. And so if they concede the game, he's technically alive at the end of the battle, which is a little bit cheesy, but this way they concede the game and are only down 1 victory point overall. So I do apologize about it being such a short battle report. However, I do hope that what was in the battle report was interesting, and therefore I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.